Hello everyone. So we're going to start the toning portion of our service now. So you can already kind of see it coming together. She's got a nice bright kind of bang piece. This will kind of sit over how we want it to sit over it. And I'm about to go in and gloss. So we're going for like a neutral but like kind of warm bright tone. So I'm doing 9GI and 9P, mostly 9GI. 40 grams of 9GI, 20 grams of 9P, and then equal with clear. And then for her root, I'm just going 7N, 7P. I decided on the 7P for my shadow root instead of like violet, like the V. Just because some of the teasy light areas, I really wanted the blue, because when I blend up, it adds like a little bit more gold than just yellow. So I wanted to have the blue in there as like security. So whenever I tone, go ahead and go down for me. I always try to go more in like kind of a teardrop shape. And then, so that way it stays kind of bright around the face, but then it gets a little bit more depth in the crown. And just like we were talking about during the class as well, these were the foils to process last. So I kind of want the darker shadow to kind of like really sit more on top of those, even though they lifted very nicely as well. And I always try to use a brush that's a little bit more, not like super blunt at the end. So this one's like feathers out a little, you can kind of see, where it's like more thick here and then kind of tapers. I always try to use a brush like that just because I find if I use a different brush, I create lines with my shadow roots. So, and really like it's that, you know, look at the wrist red. And then when I do this, I always leave my bright pieces out until the very end. And I always start my shadow in the front. No reason, just because I feel like it. Really going in and making sure you saturate at the root and then kind of flick your wrist outwards. I never try to like super overcomplicate my gloss formulas. Sometimes they get a little complicated as far as like, sometimes I'm like, I just feel like I need a little bit of this. But even in this section here where you can see that I teased, you can see that there's gonna be a little bit there. So I really wanna make sure I saturate there. So that way she has that bold pop, but without any of the foil line. So you can already kind of see how that's gonna kind of cascade down. Make sure, I always brush before I do my glosses. You really wanna make sure you're glossing on something that's not like, has a bunch of bunched up hair. Nice tension when you're putting the shadow root on. Now just going in the back, same thing. Don't be scared to kind of bring it down. When I'm flipping that over, I'm focusing and making sure I'm flipping over already where the shadow root is, so that way I'm not saturating anything that doesn't need to be saturated. Or creating a little dot or something. And here I'm really not afraid to bring it down a little bit more, kind of where, you know, you would want like a low light to be. To saturate at the root area. You really want to make sure, you know, you get that coverage of the foil line, especially when someone only wants to come every 4 to 6 months, you know. And always when I towel dry, I'm focusing more on towel drying the root than I am the ends. I don't mind if, you know, the ends have like a good amount of moisture to them because those are where the blondest, most porous pieces are gonna be. And usually our gloss formulas have some kind of ash in them. So, you know, the damper they are, the more diluted it'll be. Plus there's clear in it, so I really just wanted with the 9G, 9P to put like a nice finish on the blonde. I didn't really want to change it too much. I know a lot of people like to tone at the chair. I actually usually prefer not to. I think with certain clients, especially if it's a new client, if you don't know them, and you know, like if she told me she wanted absolutely no yellow in her hair and she didn't want to, you know, she wanted to be super ashy, and I brought her over to the chair, this is what her hair would look like, she would probably start freaking out. So it's better to, I think, always kind of just try to do it at the same. And then I'll put a cap on them and kind of put them over to the chair to process. But I've just found that like in those cases, if someone's like being really particular, and then I bring them over to the chair, I always kind of have to tell them like, don't judge it until it's done, you know? And I always wait to mix the end toner until I'm done putting the root on, because I don't want it to be sitting there processing in the bottle. And I always like to put the ends on first, kind of scrub it in a little, and then start combing through with my fingers. If I really want a nice color melt vibe, like on the top, I'll probably take my wet brush a little and work like comb that root down. But I don't mind if it's like not super color melted under here, because I really want it to last for her. So I don't mind if the brightness kind of hangs out closer to the root. Kind of starting where that, where my shadow root is. Sometimes I'll kind of bring it up a little bit, almost to dilute, to already create like a melt situation going on. I'm gonna take my brush, just kind of brush it through a little, add a little bit more of the lighter one towards the top. And including to those front pieces. Brushing these pieces back away from her face.
No, you're fine.
And then going in and just tapping the hairline after I've already put the first gloss on. Last. Sometimes when I first started doing hair, I was really afraid to bring the shadow root down because I was really scared that it was just gonna cover up all the highlights I did. But then people started coming back for like adjustments and stuff, because then it was like, well, it's too bright on the top. So as long as you're formulating correctly for what you're doing, don't be scared to, you know, bring it down a little, because you really want to make sure she gets a nice soft blend through the top, or at least that's what we're going for. So I'm going to go around her face and just once again lightly tap. I kind of want this area to be a little bit more shadowed, which is why I'm doing this one first versus the other gloss. Just because we made her purposely really bright, but I would also want to make sure it feels blended. Just being really careful, lots of tension. If you want these pieces to be really bright, or if you feel like they're particularly porous, you can always leave until like the last 5 minutes. And then I always like to go back with the shadow root after we did the face frame, and just kind of, just for good measure, just kind of tap a little bit more right at the root, because remember that lighter color's on there now. So I did a level 7, so it's really gonna look like a level 8, that tap. So, you know, because we put the 9 on it, so I'm not super stressed about it getting dark or anything. Cool, and now she'll process for 15 minutes, and then we'll get her washed and styled.